Welcome to Let's Talk Horses. I'm your host, Jason Vance, and joining me today is Carey Williams, an equine specialist from Rutgers University, and we're going to be talking a little bit about common nutrition myths. Now, Carey, there's a lot of information on the internet that's misinformation. What is the number one myth you see about feeding horses?
Oh, and sure enough, I hear all of them. I think the biggest one that I hear is people say, I can't feed my horse too much protein or he'll go crazy or go bonkers. So the myth is that protein causes hyperexcitability in horses. And what people really need to understand is it's not the protein. I don't care what they're feeding, it's not the protein that causes excess energy. If you look at a horse's energy expenditure, 100% out of 100% of all the energy that the horse is using, only 10% of that comes from protein. Most of it is carbohydrates, the sugars, any of the starches, things like that that's used. Fat is also a big energy source, but it's not the protein. So a lot of times I'll have people tell me, well, I can't feed my horse any alfalfa because he'll go crazy. Well, alfalfa is high in protein, along with other vitamins and minerals, but it's also higher in calories. It's higher in the starches and the digestible energy that the horse needs. So it's not the protein. It's not the protein.
Now, another myth is that horses need grain in their diet, which is not true.
No, that is not true. A lot of people feel that they have to give their horse some grain because any of the forages, the grasses, the hays aren't balanced. That is not true. There is different qualities of hay. If you have a horse at maintenance, we call them our pasture pets, if they're, and even some of the lighter working horses, maybe they're just trail ridden on the weekend or things like that, they can get 100% of their nutritional needs from a good quality hay or a good quality pasture. So for example, horses need about 10 to 12% protein in their diet on a daily basis. Most good quality pastures, especially on the East Coast, will provide about 15 to even 16 or 17% protein. So therefore, their protein's taken care of. Pastures also have a really nice calcium to phosphorus ratio of 2 to 1. That's what every mature horse should have, and even some growing horses. So most pastures, again, have a really nice calcium to phosphorus ratio and have everything as adequate as they need. A really funny thing, there was actually a study done at Virginia Tech that looked at 12 thoroughbred geldings on pasture, and these were maintenance horses, they weren't exercised at all, and they wanted to see how much they would take in on a daily basis. They took in between 1.5% and 3% of their body weight. So of course the horses that took in 3% of their body weight got fat. And they met 100%, if not more, of their nutritional needs on just pasture forage alone.
Now, what about bran mashes? Are they as good for horses as a lot of owners seem to think?
I like to call them chicken soup for the horse owner's soul. Because no, they really don't do anything for the horses other than make you feel good when it's cold or when it's snowy on a winter's night. It makes you feel good that your horse has a nice, chicken soup for the soul, a nice warm bran mash. Most bran mashes are made with a wheat bran product. And a lot of people think, well, I know what bran does to us. It doesn't do the same for horses. The bran is not very high in fiber like we would think, so it doesn't, or not really any higher than their hay is going to be. So it doesn't prevent colic, or it doesn't make them regular, or it doesn't, even create a natural balance to the digestive system. Bran is also very high in phosphorus. So I mentioned that calcium to phosphorus ratio, it'll actually throw off the calcium to phosphorus ratio by having more phosphorus than they need if given on a routine basis. If you're going to give it once every great while, it's probably okay, but it doesn't do anything for them.
So are there any other myths that you get asked about a lot?
That's a good question too, because there are a lot more, but for the sake of time, probably the next one is, since we just talked about bran mashes, a lot of people use beet pulp and think they have to soak it overnight. Well, that's not necessarily the case either, because there's been a lot of studies done that have used completely dried beet pulp. It doesn't expand in the stomach like a lot of people think, and it's actually bad if you soak it overnight because it can grow mold, it can have parasites, a lot of flies are attracted to that. If people are going to soak it because they want the supplements to stick nicely to it, they can just throw it in the water for 15 to 20 minutes, and that should be adequate. But no, beet pulp does not need to be soaked.
Well, Carey, thank you so much for being with us today.
No problem. Thank you.
That's Carey Williams, Rutgers University. She's been our guest on Let's Talk Horses. Tune in again next week for another edition of Let's Talk Horses.